This is Mr. H. You're listening to Masked Horror. The Haunting of 47 Hawthorne Lane. Most millionaires come from real estate. Where there's money, there's fright. We visit the story of a once promising young realtor. On a Thursday evening, in the dim light of her broker's office, Ava, an ambitious young realtor, scrolled endlessly through property listings, the glow of the computer screen casting shadows across her face. The world of real estate had proven far more brutal than she had anticipated. Deals fell through like sand slipping through fingers, and opportunities seemed to vanish before they even fully appeared. She had tons of student debt and credit card debt that was adding up. In fact, she was behind on her rent. How ironic is that? She thought that maybe she should just quit and try to do something more lucrative. She had heard of her friends trying some online businesses and was contemplating whether or not she should try it. She thought to herself, if she does not get a promising lead by Monday, she is just going to quit and try out the online opportunity. However, just as she was on the brink of surrendering her dreams to the relentless tide of disappointment, her phone rang with a promise that would alter the course of her life forever. The voice on the other end was eager, almost frantic, offering Ava what she had been yearning for, $1 million property listing. The address given was nestled in one of the city's most affluent neighborhoods, a place where dreams were made and fortunes were secured. With her spirits lifted and hope rekindled, Ava prepared herself for what she believed would be the turning point of her career. However, nothing could have prepared her for what awaited at 47 Hawthorne Lane. The house loomed like a forgotten relic, its beauty buried beneath years of neglect. Ivy crept up its sides like clawed hands, grasping, pulling it further into obscurity. Ava's initial shock was quickly masked by her professional resolve. After all, it was $1 million plus neighborhood, and a diamond in the rough was still a diamond. The front door was slightly ajar, but had a sign on it. The sign said, "Welcome. Step inside. I'm just in the kitchen making coffee." While this was unusual, Ava, enchanted with the thought of a hefty commission, proceeded inside. Stepping inside, she was immediately assaulted by the pungent odor of decay. Mountains of newspapers, books, and unidentifiable objects created a labyrinth through the house. It definitely was not an open floor plan. In fact, it was a hoarder's haven, a graveyard of memories long past their expiration. Despite this, Ava put on a mask to try to reduce the odor and pressed on. Not to offend the owner, she was planning to tell the owner that she was getting over a cold or allergies. Ava proceeded forward and turned the corner to try to find the owner. However, a few steps in, she had second thoughts. She couldn't handle this. She turned around to exit the premises, but to her shock, the door she first entered was now gone. Was she losing her mind? Ava's eyes adjusting to the dimness, her heart racing with a mix of fear and adrenaline. It wasn't long before she realized she was not alone. A sense of relief came over her. It must be the owner. Cautiously stepping further inside, whispers danced in the shadows, footsteps echoed in the distance, and the odd feeling of being watched grew with every step. Ava's attempts to introduce herself, to assert her reason for being there, was met with silence. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the very atmosphere sought to suffocate her ambition and drive her away. But she was determined, pushing forward until she found herself in what appeared to be the main living room, the heart of this twisted sanctuary. Her sense of relief had slowly turned into dread without her even realizing it. There, surrounded by piles of hoarded treasures, sat an elderly woman, her eyes gleaming with a mix of madness and clarity. "Welcome," she croaked. "You're exactly what we've been waiting for." The house, it seemed, was alive with the presence of its spirits, and the deranged occupants and owner. Before Ava could respond, the shadows moved, coalescing into figures that were both there and not. Specters of those who had come before her, lured by the promise of wealth and success. They whispered of deals never closed, of lives consumed by the greed and despair that festered within these walls. Ava tried to flee, to escape the nightmare that was 47 Hawthorne Lane, but the house, with its endless corridors and dead-end rooms, refused to release her. In her final moments, as the darkness closed in, she understood the true nature of the house. It wasn't just a hoarder's den, it was a collection itself, hoarding souls, trapping them in its endless maze of decay and despair. When the police finally arrived, drawn by concerned neighbors who noticed the young realtor's car abandoned outside, they found no trace of Ava. The house, once again, sat silent and waiting, its hunger momentarily satisfied, its secrets intact. And in the broker's office, where Ava's journey began, her phone rang once more. A new voice on the line, another soul on the cusp of surrender, ready to be lured into the depths of 47 Hawthorne Lane. No mercy in the House of Shadows. In the quaint town of Willow's End, where every street corner whispered secrets of the past, the old Mercer house stood as a testament to neglect. Its new owners, intrigued by the allure of restoration, saw beyond the decay. They envisioned a future filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the house's somber history. To bring their dream to fruition, they hired a reputable cleaning company, known for tackling the most daunting of tasks. Before the crew arrived, a mysterious note appeared underneath the front door. It was an ambiguous but ominous note. The note read, "Be prepared." Ron, the new homeowner, brushed it off as one of his kids playing a joke on him. This was a family full of fun, and playing harmless jokes was their way their family bonded together. Shortly after discarding the note, the cleaning crew arrived. This company and crew were professionals through and through, their spirits undaunted by the rumors that clung to the Mercer house like cobwebs. They were professionals after all, accustomed to uncovering the remnants of lives left behind. But nothing could have prepared them for the horrors that lay buried beneath piles of newspapers, boxes, and endless clutter. A legacy left by the house's previous occupant, Elijah Mercer, a man whose benign exterior had masked the heart of a predator. As they delved deeper into the chaos, the air grew thick, charged with an unspeakable dread. It wasn't just the stench of decay or the scuttling of unseen creatures that unsettled them. It was the feeling of being watched, hunted. Their first gruesome discovery inside of the oven, a human skeleton, its bones entangled in a heap of discarded clothing, sent waves of panic through the crew, but it was just the beginning. Room by room, they uncovered more skeletons, some whole, others fragmented, a macabre collection meticulously hidden within the hoard. The reality of their situation became horrifyingly clear. They were standing in the den of a serial killer, each item a silent witness to unspeakable acts. The discovery prompted the motivation to immediately call the authorities. But before the homeowners were notified of the findings and before contacting authorities, a chilling letter arrived that was discovered and read by Jim, the CEO of the cleaning company. Written with a disturbing calmness, the letter revealed that the purchase of the Mercer house had ensnared them in a twisted game devised by Elijah Mercer himself. He claimed that even from beyond the grave, there was no escape from the nightmare he had crafted. The house, he wrote, was a living entity, hungry for more souls to join his collection. The author of the letter, hidden behind the anonymity of ink on paper, made it explicitly clear that the crew was to remain silent about the note's existence. Not a word could be spoken to the homeowners, who remained blissfully unaware of the macabre layer added to their home's already dark history. The owner of the cleaning company, having borne witness to the chilling contents of the letter, felt an icy grip around his heart. The message was clear and terrifying. Silence was not just golden, it was mandatory. With threats against their families hanging over them like a guillotine, Jim and his crew worked with a feverish pace, their once eager spirits now shackled by fear. Instructions within the letter guided them to conceal the skeletons and dismembered remains in the depths of the basement, a grim task that was carried out with trembling hands and heavy hearts. Jim knew the stakes were high, and the price of disobedience could be the lives of those he held dear. A week passed in a haze of unease. The new homeowners, oblivious to the true extent of their house's legacy, began settling into their new life. With the house cleaned but yet unfurnished, they decided to embrace the adventure of it all, camping out in the living room, sleeping by the warmth of the fire. It was in these moments of makeshift coziness that the serial killer's twisted game crept into reality. As night enveloped the house, the air grew thick with anticipation. Shadows seemed to stretch and contort, playing tricks on the eyes and mind. Whispers filled the silence, emanating from nowhere, yet felt everywhere, as if the house itself was speaking. Cold drafts meandering through the rooms, carrying with them the sensation of spectral caress, remnants of an evil that refused to be forgotten. The family, initially dismissing these occurrences as products of their imagination, soon found themselves ensnared in a web of horror that tightened with every passing moment. Objects moved on their own accord, footsteps echoed in empty halls, and the laughter of an unseen presence danced in the darkness. The game had begun, a perverse entertainment orchestrated by a mind twisted by cruelty and madness. Days turned into weeks, and the eerie feeling of the letter that the cleaning owner received gnawed at Jim, the cleaning company owner. Guilt and a sense of responsibility compelled him to check on the family to ensure their safety amidst the shadows of uncertainty. As he approached the house, an unsettling feeling washed over him. The front door, slightly ajar, invited him into the darkness. Stepping inside, he was immediately struck by a pungent odor, a mix of decay and something far more sinister. The house was silent, too silent. There was no sign of the new owners, no laughter or light, only the oppressive weight of unseen eyes watching his every move. As he ventured further, calling out with a voice that seemed to be swallowed by the walls themselves, a sudden movement caught his eye. Before he could react, a dark shape rushed towards him, enveloping him in darkness. His screams were lost in the bowels of the Mercer house, never to be heard again. In the sinister silence that had fallen over Willow's End, a chilling revelation came to light, casting long shadows over the hearts of its residents. Jim, the owner of the cleaning company, vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a hastily sprawled note on the front door of his now desolate office. The message, filled with desperation and regret, confessed to insurmountable debts and a sudden departure from town, apologizing for the inability to compensate his employees. The once thriving business was no more, its closure as mysterious as its owner's disappearance. But this was merely the prelude to a far more sinister unveiling. Elijah Mercer, the serial killer whose name had once sent shivers down the spines of Willow's End's residents, due to his eccentric and peculiar behavior, had never truly left. Hidden within a secret compartment in the basement, he had survived, a ghost in the shadows, feeding off the flesh of his unsuspecting victims. And somewhere in the shadowed recesses of the house, the game continues, waiting for the next player to unwittingly join the ranks of the hunted. Tinder Steakhouse. It was a crisp autumn evening when Mark decided to take a chance on love, swiping right on a dating app that promised connections but often delivered nothing more than fleeting conversations. However, this time felt different. Her name was Lily, a stunning girl with a mysterious allure that Mark couldn't resist. After a week of engaging chats, they agreed to meet for their first date. Lily suggested he pick her up at her family's home, an idea that Mark found quaint and endearing. As he drove through the winding streets of a forgotten part of town, he couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. When he arrived at the address Lily had given him, his heart sank. The house before him was dilapidated, with overgrown weeds and piles of indiscernible junk cluttering the yard. He was having second thoughts. It was a hoarder's haven, a stark contrast to the image of Lily that had been forming in his mind. Pushing aside his initial shock, Mark reminded himself of the connection they shared. He approached the house, where Lily greeted him with a smile that melted his apprehensions away. She was even more beautiful in person, her presence casting a glow that seemed to overshadow the chaos of her surroundings. Lily insisted on introducing Mark to her parents before they headed out, a request he couldn't refuse without seeming rude. The interior of the house was as he feared, corridors narrowed by stacks of newspapers, rooms filled with broken furniture, and a myriad of objects with no apparent value. The air was musty, laced with the scent of mold and decay. Her family was peculiar, their eyes holding a gleam that unsettled Mark. Despite their warm welcome, there was an underlying tension he couldn't shake off. When they mentioned they were about to grill steaks for dinner and insisted the young couple stay instead of going out for dinner, Lily's father stated that he was making Lily's favorite cut of steak and that she would be missing out. Mark's desire to spend more time with Lily and not to disappoint her and to impress her overrode his urge to flee. Besides, he would save a few bucks in the process. As they sat down to dinner, the atmosphere was unnerving. The meat had a strange taste, unlike any steak Mark had ever tried. Lily's family watched him with intense interest as he ate, their smiles too wide, their laughter too forced. It was only when Mark excused himself to use the bathroom, navigating through the cluttered hallways, that he stumbled upon a horrifying truth. Hidden beneath piles of hoarded junk were remnants of clothing and personal items, alongside Polaroid photos that depicted terrifying scenes of previous diners. The realization hit him like a freight train. Lily and her family were cannibals, and he was their latest prey. Panic surged through Mark's veins as he tried to find a way out, but the house seemed to close in on him. Every turn led to dead ends, every scream muffled by the walls of hoarded debris. In a sick twist of fate, his attempt to escape led him right where he began, into the arms of Lily's waiting family. The last thing Mark saw before darkness engulfed him was Lily's smiling face, a blank smile devoid of any emotion, as she whispered, "You should have left when you had the chance." Mark's disappearance went unnoticed in a city too busy to care, another unsolved mystery among many. His bones, stripped of flesh, found their final resting place buried beneath the hoarder's house, joining the silent chorus of those who came before him. And so, the house on the outskirts of town remained a macabre monument to a family's gruesome secret. Lily continued to lure unsuspecting victims with her beauty, ensnaring them in a web from which there was no escape.